What's up, Precision Junkies? Welcome back to Inside Out Precision. My name is Kellen, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about a new video series we're doing called Practice with a Purpose. And by practicing with a purpose, what I mean by that is don't just go fling 100 or 150 arrows for the sake of shooting arrows. You need to really have a clear goal at the beginning of each practice session and have an outline or baseline set so that you can really tell if you're actually improving or not. And a good example of what I'm talking about is on shot execution or the release hand. And this is actually probably going to be one of the more common things I think that people have trouble with. I know it certainly is for me. And one thing that I have been practicing and that I noticed is that when there's a little bit of a pressure situation, like even just in a league shoot, or if we got put $5 on a target or something, is I tend to try to over aim the bow. So while my pin is steady, it's not perfectly steady, and especially in indoor, I have the habit or the tendency to really over aim that bow rather than just covering the dot or covering the spot with my pin and rolling through the shot. I'm shooting a hinge, and in order for a hinge to fire, this release has to be manipulated, right? It just pulling, if that release handle can't rotate, will not fire the shot. And what I've noticed happens is I sit there and I'm pulling, but my hand is too tense and it doesn't allow that release to comfortably rock back, thus firing the shot. So what I've been working on recently is I put up a target at like 7 yards, and I'm working on two things really. First is once I'm to full draw, I want to get that pin down onto the target a little bit faster than I have been currently. Second, once I'm on the target, I really want to focus on not over aiming. I'm going to load the back, tension into that back wall, and then as long as I keep these fingers relaxed and just kind of keep that tension built on the back wall, the shot will fire really quickly. Where I get into trouble is when that hand is not relaxed, the pin starts off in the middle and I'm pulling, but nothing's actually rotating here. And pretty soon I start to get tired. I can feel myself start to collapse a little bit. And if I shoot the arrow, it's usually a bit of a forced shot, or the shot breaks when the pin is, I have no pressure in the back wall anymore and I shoot way out the bottom. So what I've been working on is putting a target at literally 6 yards right here. And I think this is a really good way to practice if you're working on an aspect of your shot, because at 6 yards, even if I'm moving around a bunch, my pin never leaves the white. And from just a mental standpoint, it's much more calming to my brain when my pin just sits in whatever it is that I'm aiming at. I think where guys get in trouble a lot of the time is that pin does not, when it's in and out of the white, it's like you're so afraid that shot's going to go off when it's not in the white that you just, you're over aiming and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting, and then pretty soon your shot breaks down and you start shaking even more, and then it's either, you punch the trigger or, you force a shot with a hinge, and then it's way worse than if you had just been working that pin towards the middle consistently and just pulling through the shot. So what I've done is I have a target here at 6 yards, and because my pin never leaves the middle, it's much easier for me to just focus on the task at hand, which for me is keeping that hand relaxed and rolling through that shot, keeping things really fluid in the back half. There's no shame in practicing up close, because the shot is on my end is going to be the exact same whether I'm 18 feet from the target or 180 feet from the target. So I really like this method of practice. In fact, a lot of guys that I coach, a lot of people that I coach, probably the hardest thing for them to get over is a forced shot or punching the trigger. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll even remove their sight from their bow right here. And that way, when I remount it, everything will still be sighted in. But by taking the pin out of the equation, I just have them, really close up, 5 yards, center the target in their peep sight. And I just have them stare at the X and really just squeeze that trigger until the bow goes off. And by doing that, we start ingraining that muscle memory of staring at the target, which that should be your primary focus, is on the target, not your pin. staring at the target and really falling in love with that, either the tension on their, if it's an index style, the tension on the trigger, building pressure on it until the shot fires, or if it's a handheld release, whether it's a thumb button or a hinge, really getting that motion down to where it's a consistent surprise shot. And eventually the shot's not going to surprise you. It's not going to startle you. You know it's coming, but you don't force it. There's not that little voice in your head that goes, shoot now, shoot now, shoot now. You just, you keep working that pin towards the middle. If it falls way out, just let down and restart. It's not a big deal. But for a guy, if you've had trouble punching the trigger in the past, I think that taking the pin out of the equation, just focusing on the target and squeezing that trigger really, really helps. Then once you feel that you've, let's say you do that for a week and you feel that it's getting a lot better, put your pin back on, but don't go right to 20 yards and shoot a scoring round. Stay at 5 or 6 yards and start building that mental, ingraining that mental image of your pin in the spot and pulling through the shot, or, squeezing the trigger until the shot breaks. When you do decide to start scoring, I like to actually force myself to shoot a perfect score at, let's say, 8 yards. Then if I shoot a 30X and all my shots feel good, if I'm happy and honest with myself that, the shots I made broke clean, I didn't force shots, I didn't shoot any shots that I should have let down, then I'll back it up to 10 yards and I'll do the same thing there. I'll shoot at 10 yards until I shoot a score that I'm happy with and that all the shots felt good on. Once I shoot a score at 10, back it up to 12 or 14 yards and work your way back to 20. When the target's close like that, the same amount of movement in my hand does not move the pin as far on relative to the target. So it's much easier, in my opinion, to focus on the release when that pin just stays in the white or yellow or whatever target face you're shooting. And by incrementally working my way back, that dot doesn't all of a sudden seem really small. I'm not shooting it at 5 yards and then putting it at 20 yards. I'm working my way back, and by the time I get to 20, it just seems like it's always been that size. And chances are I'm going to be holding a little better because I've been practicing consistently, and everything seems to just roll a lot smoother. So I really think this is a good technique for practicing. Like I said, whether it be your alignment or your back tension or the execution of your release, by starting up close and working your way back, you will help ingrain the proper muscle memory in your shot sequence. So that's kind of my homework for you this week. If there's something that you're working on, don't just go out to 40 yards right away and start flinging arrows. Start close and work your way back. I really don't like, lots of times people judge whether it was a good shot or not based on where their arrow hit. And unfortunately, I can make a really dumb shot on my part and the arrow will still hit the X. So when you're doing this, be honest with yourself. If it was a bad shot, really focus on correcting whatever it was that was bad about it on the next shot. Or even better yet, if you can tell something's not right, just let down, hit the reset button, draw back and do it the correct way. There's really no need to ingrain either old bad habits or if you're a new archer, there's no reason to start, punching a trigger just because you want the arrow to hit the middle. It's like, take your time, let down, hit the reset button, and make sure that every arrow you fire is the best arrow that you can. It will really help you translate that into a pressure situation by just building that muscle memory. Once you do decide to start scoring, I think scoring is a really good way to see if you're improving. Obviously, if your shots are better, your scores should be improving. I also think that for any sort of tournament archer, putting that little bit of added pressure on yourself when you're practicing kind of helps simulate that tournament environment. Whereas if I just come and shoot for an hour but I don't actually score, none of those arrows really have any meaning to me. And I know a lot of people who are 300 shooters in practice, and then they go to a tournament and they're like low 290s or high 280s even. And it's just because now that it means something, they get a little tense, like exactly what I was talking about how I do. And their shots don't flow as smooth, they start over-aiming the bow, and the wheels just kind of start falling off. So by adding that little bit of pressure to scoring when you practice, I think it'll help kind of replicate that pressure scenario in a tournament. So I hope that this is something you guys can implement this week or whenever you get to practice. It's starting to be nicer weather here, so maybe you're setting your outdoor setup up. I know I just got my new outdoor arrows today. Looking forward to getting those done. But in the meantime, I'm still working on my shot execution because, again, whether I'm shooting 20 yards or 100 yards, the shot is going to be the same. And so, having a goal each practice session and then building upon that is a really, really positive thing, in my opinion. So I hope you guys are having fun out there. There will be some videos posted about this coming up. Check out our Instagram. It's inside_out_precision. And we allude to a lot of the videos we post on YouTube, on Instagram first. Today was just kind of a general overview of what practicing with a purpose means. As we go along here, we're gonna get more in depth with release execution and alignment and back tension, the overused word back tension, kind of what that actually means and how to properly use it. So stay tuned for all those. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do so. Again, feel free to comment. We love questions. We've had a lot of really positive feedback from you guys. Until next time, keep it in the middle, and remember, precision is a decision.